My 25-year-old male best friend lost a parent a year and a half ago, which led him to a mental health crisis. Our friend group has been picking up the pieces ever since. He's doing much better now that he's in therapy, but he's gone through a lot. What has complicated matters is my 25-year-old female fiance. We've been together for only 2 years, and I proposed a month before Nolan's parents' death. I love her, but she can be a bit nosy sometimes. My best friend is a very private person. She knows something happened to him, but she doesn't know the details of what that something is. She probably never will, but because she's often around my friends and me, as we live in the same house, she hears bits and pieces of the story and presses for more information. I try to handle this as best as possible. For example, I step out of the room for specific phone conversations, but it can still be difficult to limit the discussion about it sometimes. So if we must bring it up and she's around in person, we'll refer the Nolan situation without giving specifics. Nolan will also stop by my place at night when he can't sleep. This doesn't happen all the time, only twice a month. He'll text me or call me saying he's outside and I'll sit with him and maybe smoke a little bit. Then he'll head home. I'll wait up until I know he got home safely. My fiance hates this. She claims the phone calls always wake her up, but they don't. She just happens to wake up for the bathroom while I'm outside, and she gets worried when I'm not in bed. This brings us to last night. Nolan stopped by, and when I returned inside, my fiancé said she was putting a stop to it. She said all the sneaking around is making her paranoid. She doesn't feel like she can properly trust me or be a part of my friend group without knowing the details, and she thinks Nolan needs to stop relying on me so much. I told her that no matter whether we were married, dating, or whatever, she would never have any ownership over my friend's trauma, and she would never be able to order me around regarding it. I also said that someone's actual physical well-being is more important than her comfort. She was obviously hurt by this and went to stay with her mom after work today. It's almost 1 a.m. and she's not back. Am I the idiot? Edit, she knows Nolan lost a parent. She doesn't know the aftermath beyond the statement that Nolan had a mental health crisis. Yes, he has specifically asked me not to tell her. We do not constantly talk about this in front of her. I'm giving examples over the past year and a half. Also, Nolan sees a therapist. He comes to my place to hang out. Here's the thing, man. Your fiancé is going to be the most important person in your life. Your partner. And while it's true that it's up to Nolan what he shares and with whom he shares it, but it does sound like you're excluding her from the situation to a problematic degree. You're not your friend's therapist. If my significant other was frequently getting up late at night because a non-mutual friend needed to be comforted multiple times a month, it would eventually begin to bother me if I wasn't in the loop. And apparently, Nolan hasn't even let her get to know him through small talk or anything. She's being very excluded from anything to do with Nolan. So from her perspective, you meet this guy and you two really hit it off. It's true love at first sight and all that, and you're only together for 5 months when he proposes. Whoa, maybe it's a little scary to jump straight into marriage like this, but you love him, so you're excited. But then a month later, you hear that one of Nolan's parents died. Now whenever you walk into the room when the group is together, they all shush each other and talk in hushed voices. The only thing you ever really hear is them vaguely referring to the situation with Nolan. Another year and a half goes by and it's still happening. You feel like you're going crazy. No one will tell you what the heck is going on, or why your fiancé keeps sneaking out in the middle of the night. I have anxiety just writing that out. I can't even imagine how anxiety-inducing it must have been to live through that. Wow, OP, you are the idiot. Yes, stop being nosy and trying to insert yourself into a situation that has only affected your life and relationship for the last 18 months or so. The nerve of some people. Nolan is emotionally manipulating you at this point. There's a major difference between being intensely private and using this event as emotional leverage to get your group to drop everything for him. Nothing bonds people like drama, but your whole friend group takes it to an extreme. OP, I think you need to evaluate whether your friend is emotionally needy or doesn't want to lose you to your fiancé. Nolan is someone I care for, but your fiancé is being nosy. Yikes. Is it just me, or is OP way more invested in Nolan than in her fiancé? If so, he needs to let her go for her own benefit. She shouldn't be second fiddle in his heart. I work in a field that closely relates to the legal profession. I have a dual degree in law and business, and I work with actual lawyers and deal with legal issues daily. Also, because of the classes I took in university and the friend circles I was in, I know many lawyers in various areas of the legal profession, including those in the prosecutor's office, divorce attorneys, and corporate lawyers whom I work with. Subject options for next year. I really struggled to choose between biosciences, psychology, business, and law, so I was really interested in what she was going to choose. She said she was struggling between doing biosciences and then grad entry medicine or law. I struggled with the same issue. I didn't get the grades for undergraduate medicine, by the way, and neither did she. One thing I got concerned about, though, is how she thinks the legal profession works. She was talking about how cool it is to tackle super unique cases every day, and how she would love earning massive amounts of money while doing it. She mentioned that she thought it was like the TV show Suits, but a bit less cinematic. This is where I stepped in and explained how the legal field really works and the pros and cons of working in it. The minute I started talking about the cons, though, after the pros obviously, my sister began glaring at me, and I broke the concept that lawyers work on super unique, exciting cases all the time. They are typically specialized, so they deal with the same kind of cases. Not that it's boring. They mostly spend their time reading through contracts or drafting them in the corporate field, which is what is portrayed on Suits. The amount of time they spend at trial is ridiculously short compared to how long they spend preparing for it, but also ridiculously long too, as trials can last for months. Basically, my niece then started screaming at me how she knows more about the legal profession than I do, and that I don't know anything about law, and how I'm trying to explain her own profession to her, even though she's never worked or met a lawyer before. I decided it was best to leave. I no longer stay in places where I'm yelled at. My sister called me and told me I had no right to explain something I had no idea about, and that I was a typical man trying to tear down a young girl's dream of being a powerful woman in a high-level profession. Am I the idiot? Well, actually, but no, that wasn't explaining, as in telling a woman things she already knows in a condescending tone. This was explaining to an inexperienced person with unrealistic expectations that the real world doesn't work like TV. You didn't tell her not to be a lawyer. You told her what being a lawyer is really like. Boy, I think the definition of explaining could get even more diluted, but here we are. You're offering your experience in your field to someone who is not in the field. She should know what she's getting into. You explained it to her. You did nothing wrong and shouldn't have been yelled at for that. Let her find out the hard way. As a lawyer and a woman, I can say that you are not the idiot. Also, this is not explaining. Firstly, just because a man is explaining something doesn't make it explaining. Second, I've had this very conversation with undergrads looking into being a lawyer while I referenced a different TV show. I said almost exactly what you did. And I've been licensed for almost 25 years. And I can tell you without reservation that being a lawyer isn't really about arguing or doing cool, exciting crap. And I've done both litigation and in-house corporate work. Much of it is interesting if it's what you like. Yeah, I'm a nerd, so I like it. But it's not really revealing or showy. As one colleague and I decided once, we're basically attack librarians. My fiance and I are moving in together. We decided that she should be the one to move in with us since my home is bigger and in a better area. I have a younger teen daughter, and she has 2 daughters. One is the same age as my daughter, and one is a mid-teen. I live in a 2-bedroom home. A few years ago, I finished the basement and added a bathroom to it, and gave it to my daughter. The other room is my office, which I was planning on turning into a bedroom for my fiance's daughters. It's a small room, but it's nice, and it can fit 2 beds, especially if we add a bunk bed instead of 2 twin beds. It doesn't have a bathroom, but we don't live in a palace, so it's pretty close to the bathroom. My fiance and I have been talking about the room situation, and we don't seem to be able to agree on anything. That She thinks I'm an idiot for planning to let my daughter have the entire basement for herself, and force hers to share a small room. This has been my daughter's room for years. She decorated it with her mom so she shouldn't have to give it up. Obviously her family is on her side. So am I the idiot for not asking my child to give up her room? Hearts, stop and do not go any further with this relationship. We know you will, of course, because you don't see that this is the beginning of a lifelong problem. The only way for this relationship to survive is to move into a different house with equivalent bedrooms for the kids. What would that be? Not sure, but I know it isn't your current setup. You're in a complete no-win situation, and you will be the idiot either to your daughter or your fiancé and her children. You are the idiot for moving 5 people into a 2-bedroom home with a basement. The fact that you're even having this argument with your significant other proves it's not suitable for all of you. This was your daughter's home first. Making her share or give up her basement room will cause her to resent you all, and it'll be vastly unfair to displace her in her own home. However, squeezing 2 teenage girls into a tiny room is also an idiotic move. Your home is not suitable at all. Although, question, is your bedroom bigger than the smaller room? If so, give up your room to the incoming 2 teenagers, and you and your significant other can share the smaller room. If not, get a bigger home. Well, he thinks bunk beds for teens is a good idea. You're the idiot. You think your daughter shouldn't give up her room, but her daughters are already giving up their rooms and house. You're all becoming one family, and none of the children are choosing this. Therefore, forcing them into it will not create a positive relationship between them. I'm 23 and my niece is a teen. Last year, my brother and sister-in-law moved her to a private school since she was getting bullied and went from an A to an F student. But even a year in, she's still failing. I knew what she was going through. I'd had some traumatic experiences with my first boss, and even when I quit, PTSD from that cost me my next job too. One day, she called me upset about it, and I told her I could relate. My first boss was a terrible bully who really hurt and scarred me, and for years after I quit, I'd be as upset as if it had been yesterday. I spent my nights wondering if he was right or if I deserved it somehow. I asked if that's how she felt. She said yes and wanted to know how to make it stop. I told her that I had started seeing him as dead to me. I'd never have to see him again. For all I know, he might really be dead, but it didn't matter. In my heart, he had been dead for a long time. She said she didn't know how to do that. They literally aren't dead. I said that this might sound a little woo-woo, but there was an idea my therapist had that really helped me, burning things that held bad memories. She wanted to try, and my brother said it was fine with him. So she put everything that reminded her of the bullies into a box. And if it was online, she sent me a link, and I would print it out. Then one evening, she went through her box at my place by my fire pit, and we talked a lot about each thing and the memories she needed to get off her chest before she burned it. Afterward, I read a bit of writing that I'll share here for context later. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. All the universe gives us, it takes back in time. You've been given a pain you didn't deserve, and you've been carrying it with you ever since. It's time to let go. This box where you've gathered your pain is now but ashes. The wind will scatter it until no trace is left. Let us lay the bully's name to rest in your heart. Let this be the last time their names are spoken of, if that's your wish. That night, she thanked me for everything, and it had obviously been cathartic. She also asked me if she could keep what I wrote, and I said yes. She told a few friends at school about what we did, and the school administration heard and got concerned. Some of it had gotten taken out of context. The school called her mom, my sister-in-law, and she went through her things and found the writing I did, and she called literally accusing me of doing witchcraft, which I honestly started laughing at. Because if I was a witch, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I wouldn't be so broke. She was furious and said that I was making jokes when I really overstepped, not being her parent, and it was totally inappropriate of me to give the advice that they're dead to me, to a kid about other kids. My brother agreed with her. So am I the idiot for the advice I gave? And was I overstepping? Not the idiot. How is any of what you did considered witchcraft? You gave solid advice and helped your niece. Your sister-in-law is just mad that you helped your niece better than her. However, you should tell your sister-in-law that if she clutched her pearls any harder, she'd be venturing into autoerotic asphyxiation territory, and the school might frown upon that. Has no one at the school ever seen the movie Clueless? Or any of the other million times where people burn things that have bad memories? This isn't a terribly unique concept. Also, your niece reached out to you for help, and you did your best to support her. It probably would have been smart to check in with your brother and sister-in-law afterward, but nothing you did endangered her or undermined their parenting. Her parents have had their entire lives to protect her from bullies, and they failed, so it's time for Auntie to come to the rescue. Also, the school and her parents care more about witchcraft than bullying. That should tell you a lot about their character. My 45-year-old stepdaughter, who is almost an adult, is a phenomenal cook. I'm talking homemade pasta sauces, scratch baking, and sometimes imported seasonings. However, she only cooks for herself. She's been fine cooking when I ask her to do it for us, but only on rare occasions. When we're all busy and need to have DIY dinner nights and can't all sit around the table, you can smell her homemade garlic pesto or vegan teriyaki stir-fry all over the house, and it gets irritating. We get her ingredients that she uses up quickly, and she never makes meals to share. I'm getting annoyed, so I asked her earlier tonight if she would start making dinner for all of us more frequently. I didn't say every night. She got annoyed and mouthy with me, saying she's drowning in schoolwork, her internship, and her commissions. She's a very talented artist, and can't babysit us because we never learned to cook. She claims her sparse dinner preparations are a treat when she's up to the task and feeling nice, and she can't be expected to come up with something new and fresh every night. She's doing it for herself anyway, so why not for the rest of us? So I told her to just do the dishes and go to her room. She did the dishes and stomped off and hasn't come out since. My wife thinks I'm the idiot here, but I think I'm in line. She lives under my roof, doesn't pay rent, and is already cooking every night for herself anyway. Why is a minor child cooking every night for herself in the first place? She does have a full-time job, school, plus a part-time job and an internship, and she's a child. Get in the kitchen, dude. She's 17. You're 45. You should be embarrassed. And he has the nerve to say, she lives under my roof rent-free, and I buy her groceries. Yeah, dude, she's a child. That's how things usually work. Her mom is legally responsible for providing housing, food, etc. for her. You and your wife should take some cooking classes. She clearly does it to fend for herself, and as a creative project that satisfies her. You're entitled and rude, and she's absolutely right. It's not her fault that you didn't learn basic cooking. Pesto and teriyaki are basic foods that require less than 10 steps. The fact that you would even think that she's living there rent-free is sickening. You should have never married a person with kids if you thought those children would have to pay you to have a home. You're a grown adult. If you can't make yourself decent sustenance, then it's not this young girl's problem.